First of all, nice to see you all. Yeah, I was always an audience in last year's as Project A, so it's the first time Project A gave the opportunity to speak about Cloud Journey. So I'm super excited. Before we get deeper into the Cloud Journey topic, I have two interesting questions to know my audience much better. The first one is, how many of you are non-techies, so coming from the business background? Just raise a small hand. Okay, 40%, good. I have slides which is tech and business focus, so yeah, no need to worry. The second question is, how many of you have experienced already Cloud Journey in any form? Good, see, 50%. This is what I also saw when I was doing a case study or what was seeing online, how many companies in Germany have done the Cloud Journey already. So if you see more on the dark blue side, in Germany, near about 47% of companies are already in cloud. And if you go more towards the sectors, like service sector, not a surprise, 50% of the companies are already in cloud. And interesting for me to see construction is also catching up now with 33%. And if you see more on the right side where people are planning or discussing about Cloud Journey, it's not. So there's a really a good trend of people want to move to the cloud and gain the importance or the things what cloud can do to the business, basically. About Ratepay, yeah, so we are also one of the company who are in cloud. And if you see the people, they are mostly commercial people going towards a merchant and talking about our product, basically. Hopefully some of you know Ratepay, or maybe have bought invoices or bought other things through a Ratepay. So the first thing, we are #1 white label provider in Europe to provide invoicing and installment solution. So just to give you an example, so we have some merchants like Zara or PayPal. If you want to buy a pair of shoes at Zara website, you can pay by invoice. And background, all the systems which are there are from Ratepay. So that's what we do for merchants. The second is we don't only work with B2C customers, we are the only one which also have B2B customers in the pipeline. The third one, which is very interesting, or which I'm very can relate to, we use AI in the product lifecycle, basically. So we do a risk management for our customers, and this we do through an AI. Last not but least, we do 100% payment guarantee to our customers, so that we can take all the risk from our side. Now moving to the Cloud Journey, the topic which we are here for. Before we start talking about the implementation or how much time it took to implement cloud, what were the challenges, I want to go through what were the reasons why Ratepay decided to go to the cloud. We were coming from the on-prem setup. So you can think about really physical machines somewhere in Hamburg sitting there, and we have all the softwares running on that physical machine that's on-prem. But when we see more on the future dimension where we want to go, like we want to have stable operations, we want to make sure we can scale our product, not only in Germany, but also pan-Europe product. And the last one, which some of techies can relate, if you have on-prem, it's very difficult to maintain because you have to maintain each and everything by your own. That's all the reasons what we see relate to on-prem setup, and we cannot get out of it. So that's why we decided to move to the cloud, and we choose AWS as our cloud partner, which will also help Ratepay growth in the future. Moving to the implementation of Cloud Journey. And that was very tricky. That's why I call Cloud Journey and not cloud migration, because it was not like moving from A to B. It's like really a journey which involved a lot of streams, a lot of commitment from whole company to go for it. If you see on the left-hand side, this is where we are coming from. We had a setup, so Ratepay is existing since 15 years now. And we have a setup in the Plus server in Hamburg, where we have physical machines. All the database services runs in that machine. I think so we have near about 600 VMs running there. And this is a target picture. We want to move to AWS to use the capabilities what AWS provide, and also easy to maintain or easy to manage whole infrastructure, basically. With this journey, what we thought about to have proper project management in place, which means to have proper streams so that we don't miss any of the part where you move to the cloud. The first stream, which was very interesting for Ratepay, because as I was talking about that we are a payment company, we are fintech in Germany, so we are regulated by BaFin. BaFin, if some of you don't know, is a German entity which checks the company who are fintech, banks, and have to make sure that everything goes like a plan or you don't mess up in between. So we have a big stream, which is regulatory compliance, which means you have to have a proper documentation. You have to make sure the auditors are happy with all the processes, what you want to place, and also the migration, what move from A to B, go in a standard manner. And there's a rollback strategy. So that's a big stream of, I think, so 400 documentation, which we have to provide or come up during the whole process. And that's a heavy lifting for the company. The second, which very relatable from the tech perspective, was native migration. How we can move services from A to B, from Plus Server to AWS. And this was also very tedious because not every service is cloud ready. So the second part, you also want to make sure you don't take your tech debt to the cloud. So the cloud journey kind of exploded because you have a lot of things what you want to fix first before you move to the cloud. We had near about 120 microservices, and during the journey, which we also decided to depreciate 40 microservices because we are touching now everything what Ratepay had. And this is the opportunity which you can get also when you're moving everything to the cloud. On the way, you can also maybe depreciate some things. So yeah, so we use infrastructure as a code. And this is all, again, go back to the regulations and everything. We can track, also is audit proof when you write infrastructure as a code. The third pillar, which is always confusing, lift and shift. I think so I took like 6 meetings with our auditors to explain them what it means, lift and shift. To explain, lift and shift is basically just moving things from Plus Server to AWS without touching anything from the infrastructure part. So it's really, we have a VMware machines running in Plus Server, we had now in AWS. Why we did this? Because we are going to the native migration. Main point, we were in bit rush to shut down our on-prem because of also the contractual obligation you have to renew. And this is what we thought to have a temporary stage to just lift and shift to the cloud so that we can shut down Plus Server and then slowly move to the native migration. Last, database migration, which was also very complex because it's not only the services database migration. Sometimes you also see IT components have a database. Nobody have noticed it or nobody have thought about this, right? So, and when we have gone through the audit, basically for whole cloud journey, database was one of the biggest pillar which auditors want to have a view on. How you move your database from A to B and how you can validate that you don't lose anything in between. And as I was speaking, Ratepay is 15 years old. We have terabytes of data from the consumer perspective. So you have to make sure that everything is documented and everything has gone through proper phase, basically. So that was our implementation phase. When we talk about implementation, right? So you can't go from A to B in a day or two, right? So it's a journey, basically, what we have to take. What we come up with cloud maturity model, and this is also what you see online, then there's a different phases of cloud where we are starting from. So if you see on the left corner, small, no cloud. We have legacy setup on Plus Server, and this is where we started our journey, basically. Then we move up in the ladder to some different stages. So first, we thought, let's experiment cloud. Let's move some services or move some IT components in cloud and to have a feel how it looks like. Because when AWS is we choose AWS is a new environment. Yeah, so and people also need to learn and to see what implications it can bring. And during lift and shift, we already saw there's a different firewall settings and all that stuff, which can be problematic. Then if you move more up to the ladder, you can think about setting up initial governance, because this is what I see also in my past companies where cloud journey failed, that there's no proper governance. Nobody knows who's doing what. And we just started using a sprint, basically. But it's not a sprint, it's bigger than that. So what we did is to really set up a governance, a proper project planning and steer course to make sure we have a proper plan how to move to the cloud in a given time frame. If you go more up in the ladder, then you see more processes comes into place. How you manage security on the cloud was becoming a big topic. Yeah, so because the way of working in Plus Server is completely different in AWS. And the secondly, what comes up is cost. Of course, you can implement security, but then it's a more cost what AWS have. The last one, or second last one, is cloud readiness, when you are really ready to move things to the production. So we have, of course, different environments, dev, staging, and production. And with every environment, we learn how it is and also make sure that the production, nothing breaks, because we have real-time traffic. And this is where we have to be careful moving things. And last, for, I would say, 80% of our services, we reach Nirvana. So things are in cloud, real time, it's working as planned. And of course, now we are going to the second stage, how we can improve our access management or observability, all that stuff. So that's a stage is what we gone through in the whole cloud journey, what we took. The status, where we are right now. We started this journey last year. So our high-level goals was, let's say, 3 main goals. We need a proper infrastructure, or I would say state-of-art infrastructure. The second is ZIT compliance. This is basically buffing kicks in that you have to be compliant if you're running your services. The third is native migration, what needs to go to the cloud. On the first level, we already achieved. So we have a state-of-art infrastructure. We also pass all the AWS quality checks. And this was also good to have a sparing partner to make sure what you're thinking from the infrastructure point of view is stable and also future-proof. ZIT compliance, already told you, got a positive feedback from auditors. That's good. Regarding microservices, we have most of the services running in AWS. And right now, what we are trying to do is to shift IT components. And this was a bigger shift because we didn't, I mean, we know it, but it comes as a more as a surprise because you see a lot of file servers or SFTP, which nobody taken into account because product engineering think about services, but there's also small components which are running on Plus Server, and this has to have a home in AWS. So this is what we are now fixing last 20% to move to the cloud. It doesn't come as free. There were so many challenges which we saw. The first one is to how you maintain 2 infrastructure. Even though you did lift and shift into the AWS, it's still old-prem kind of in AWS. And then you have a native migration. So that was a lot of challenging for us to maintain 2 infrastructure with a different knowledge and to make sure we are always up and running. The second, as mentioned, we have real-time traffic. We process 1 million transactions in a month, and we have to make sure nothing go wrong, of course, with 0 downtime, but we also have maintenance window, which we agreed with our merchants. This is like once in a month in an early morning where we can move real-time services to the cloud. But this is also short time. So you have to make sure from the project planning, how many services can go in the maintenance window. The third one was also interesting. When we start touching services, we see many services cannot be cloud ready. It needs a lot of discussion because also from the tech stack which we have. So right now we have Java, but there's old PHP tech stack. And this is also what's challenging, how you can run different tech stack also in AWS with different pipelines. So this was a learning to also think about tech depth when doing a cloud journey, because it can be surprising that it's a lot. The last or second last one was we have different domains. So in product engineering or tech department, Ratepay, we have data engineering, machine learning, all that stuff. And everybody has, or every domain has a different approach to move to the cloud. So for data engineering, we don't want to move to AWS. We want to move to Snowflake, for example. And this also was very challenging because everyone has a different approach. For machine learning, they have Python models, which is different than running a Java code, right? So this was also a learning to make sure all the domains are accounted equally into the project planning and make sure that this also go through. Last one, again, regulatory stuff, access permission. In on-prem, it was different permissions what we have, but in AWS come with more complex framework actually, which we have to put it. So that's also come as a more like a surprise actually for us. Apart from the cloud journey, technical implementation, we also see that it's an organizational change which company has to go through. Especially, it's a digital transformation. And we have to make sure people are not forgotten in the whole journey. What we see that we have to change the mindset of people. So because there's a new ways of working in the cloud, so we have to make sure the mindset shift is there. When we see about thesis about cloud, what is changing in the whole cloud journey? The first thing is processes. But sometimes there's also the fear actually that we are changing the business logic that's come from the business and all that stuff. But we have to make sure that it's very much communicated that we are only changing, let's say, infrastructure part of this. Business logic will stay same. The second is change. With the whole cloud journey, you will see you're going for a lot of change, which also include people change, because you also need probably different kind of people to make sure this cloud journey is successful. Challenge, of course, you can't tell to the business that we do cloud journey for 1 year and there's no future release. It can't happen, right? So there's a conflict priorities always, which we have to make sure that we can have a balance for this. Technology. When we pronounce or when we talk about cloud journey, the assumption is cloud journey is a technical problem, which techies want to solve it, but it's much more than this, because we are also moving to the scalability of the whole product with this. People. This is also what we see when we go to the cloud journey. We always forget people, because we focus on the tech side of the things, how it will be and how it can manage our work basically, and we forgot to train people to the new ways of working. Last is the culture. With the whole cloud journey, we also see that there's an already established culture since many years, which is working, and now you are bringing a new ways of working. So this is also where people have some fears with the change, which is always the case. And this is what we try to do with some workshops to change mindset. Talking about impact of cloud journey, as I say, that's not only a tech department, but it's the whole company which is changing. One thing what we see is a standardization of software development. So with the whole cloud journey, we are standardizing the whole process basically with this. We have a documentation which is compliant. We have a proper guidelines now, how to run this code properly into the cloud. And that's what standardization will also help everyone in the company, because now you have a proper process. The second one was a key because you will see that there are a lot of roles will be adjusted. How the incident management in Plus server or on-prem is completely different in cloud, right? Also the day-to-day operations, it's completely changed. And this is where we want to make sure that we are not in a reaction mentality, but more a prevention mentality. So to make more observability tools and things like this. But the main thing is to make sure employees are in it, the new ways of working. Last, we want to make sure infrastructure plays a critical role. In the past, when I joined Ratepay 2 years ago, it was developer write a code in Java, then just hand over to infrastructure. So there's these silos. And with cloud journey, you will see infrastructure will play a key role, where developers are also now interested to know what's going on, and they should also learn more about infrastructure. Because what we say, you build it, you run it, and you fix it kind of mentality from the DevOps mindset. And this is also comes with cloud journey, where we are giving the tools to the developer to fix their code if it's broken, for example, or deploy services by their own. It's also important when I talk about people is to unite them. What we see also in different companies, you always have early adopters. Some people who are very keen to go to the cloud from their past experience or also the problems they have faced. But you also have late majority, the people who have fear about the technology, or the people who have driven by some different priorities. And I believe we need an action plan for this to make sure we don't lose people during the journey. An action plan is to do the trainings, to understand their fears, don't neglect them, and finally bridge the gap between early adopters and the late majority of people, so that you can take everyone in the same journey. Final takeaways and my personal recommendation. Project management, can't emphasize more, is a key to the successful cloud migration. The second one is a budget planning. So the cost estimation of cloud journey can go twice if you don't monitor it properly. And I think so with the help of project management, you can plan your work packages and things around this to have a proper budget plan. Last year is like, as I mentioned, we have different approaches for different tech components. So this is also should not be neglected, that we can't have sometimes one way of moving things to the cloud. We have to make sure everything is covered or every tech department is covered. Trainings are important, as always mentioned, because of people are learning new ways of working. So we need to pick them up and train them. Last, we need commitment from the company. Because as mentioned, Cloud Journey will block some features, will block some ways of working, and it's new ways of working. So we need proper attention and make sure the company is dedicated to go to the cloud, because the experience I've seen, some companies stop in between because the cost is heavy or project is not properly planned. So it's better to make sure everyone is in it and to make to the finish line. Yeah. Thank you. That's from my side. Maybe let's start maybe discussion or Q&A.
Thank you so much, Sid. Yeah, feel free to ask any of your questions. Go ahead. We record everything, so that's fine.
Yeah. So actually, I want to ask about the costs because, like, it used to be that cloud is more affordable, but right now I think it's actually more expensive than on-premise. And lately, what I've noticed is actually that companies are choosing more towards like hybrid or even some, like, there are now some platforms which provide services on top of on-premise. And from my perspective, like now, like, have you considered those options as well? Especially like for AI and ML stuff. Like, for example, in my past companies, what I've been doing is actually we were buying our on-prem machines, and then we would do training and testing there, and then staging and production we would move towards like cloud basically for scale.
Cost is always an interesting question, right? So we tried hybrid, so we put things on-prem and have an AWS, but it doesn't solve the cost problem because you have networking traffic and so much going back and forth. And when you see the bill of AWS at the end of the month, you'll be surprised why it is like this. So that's why I tell to the company to finish this on-prem fast. But of course, for the starting or early phase, it's too costly because you're maintaining two systems at the same time, on-prem and native. So my recommendation, also from my previous cloud journey, to do lift and shift if you are fine with the cost, because lift and shift would be super costly. And of course, it will take time for people to really move to the native because you already shut down on-prem, so you already solved one bigger part of audit, and then it will make really need to push people to finish now the SDC or the on-prem. So I would say if the cost is one factor, I would really consider lift and shift as a temporary solution, yes or no, because this can cost a lot of the money. Yeah.
I put a follow-up question directly to that. So you would say doing a lift and shift of all the resources and everything into the cloud and then moving inside AWS the native services, and that is more costly even compared to the higher complexity of moving vendor and moving services and refactoring all at once?
That's an interesting question, right? Because it's always depends on how tech depth you have in the cloud or in the services, basically. So for us, especially when we move, I would say the lift and shift, or we did lift and shift, you have to get rid of this as soon as possible. Otherwise, every month it's billing so heavily, especially VMware, because it's not only the host what you're paying, it's typically the storage. So if you have really big database, it will like bleed from the cost perspective. And that's what I won't recommend in the starting. Regarding the tech depth, right? So for us, it's different because for us, it's like we have a plus server where we don't have a proper disaster recovery. So if something goes down, we will go down with that, right? Which is not nice. So that's why we are in a rush to move to the AWS so that at least you have a disaster recovery, which is coming out of the box from AWS. So I think that really depends on which phase you are in. In my previous company, which is ING Bank, so where we did step by step. So We put everything on Plus server, as you mentioned, make all the tech debt removed or tech ready or cloud ready, and then we move. Also, it was nice because we have a longer contract for 4 years, then it's not a cost saving if you move faster. But lift and shift, as again I mentioned, just be careful with this because it can go crazy.
So I'm curious about the refactoring part when you talk about technical debt as well. Maybe you have a feeling for how much this whole journey did actually improve your overall system or quality of code, maintainability, all of the things.
It has a multiple effect, right? Because we thought during the cloud journey, take this opportunity to fix the tech debt. And it's also a good selling point, right, to the company we are fixing it because you won't get a chance after this, right? So we have to build features, we have to gain merchants and all that stuff. So we took this opportunity to, I believe, depreciate 30% of our tech stack already because we see, okay, we can do cleanup because anyway, all the services are touched, have to make cloud ready. Of course, you can't change everything, but most of the things was changed. It really helped, especially in terms of monitoring, observability. It's much better with AWS ways of working what we have.
A very impressive journey. You talked about the challenge of balancing, like working on the product and also the whole cloud journey. So how did you set up your team to find the right balance? Did you get external support, for example, or how did you work in Ratepay to make this journey happen?
Of course, it's not green from day one, right? So what we found in the starting of the journey that we don't have full talent to make this cloud journey as successful in time frame what we're looking for, like 7-8 months, for example. We took a help of consulting company to bring this knowledge. And of course, it's not like just do something and go, but with proper documentation, have a proper guidelines, and this is how we did it. But it was, of course, have an impact on the feature development. So this is where we convince management to talk about this, that we do, I think so we did 60-40, so 60 cloud journey and 40, I would say the product features still. Yeah. But it's of course challenging because you're deploying and then you have to fix the code. So external agency really helped with extra power, what we get, especially the people who are doing the cloud journey every day. This was helpful.
Thank you for the presentation. You were mentioning it was very important to switch from a reactive mentality to a preventive mentality. What do you do to encourage it?
I would say yes, right? So we have real-time customers like you see Zara, PayPal, I mean, it's Beast, right, in terms of payment. And you won't be delighted if they call you that your systems are down. It's better you call them that something is the problem. So this is a change in mindset. Of course, with the whole cloud journey, we also try to change this, that we have a proper observability tools and proper monitoring and dashboards in place so that, I mean, we are in tech, right? Things can happen, right? So, but it's better that if we are having everything under control and if there's an incident or whatever happens, we have a rollback strategy and things like this. And it's a mindset shift, right? You're not waiting actually to have an incident, but you make sure you have proper dashboards and guardrails in place. So this was really helpful during the cloud journey when we did kind of workshops to change this mindset.
Exactly. How did you encourage your devs to actually produce their own dashboards or to make sure that they actually pay attention to this and not just deploy and then?
Yeah, I mean, there was two things, right? One is ownership, right? So there's a concept of ownership. People are have to go through this, and it was a lot, right? So we also lose people in the phase where the people don't want to take ownership. They don't want to be on call, for example, if service is down. So we bring this very strong mentality that it's your software, you build it. If there's a mess up in the late night, you have to fix it because you're also on call, right? And then you'll be very careful next time to build it properly, right? So, but it was I would say like the mentality shift, what we did. What was also interesting, what we did with the cloud journey. So in AWS, we set up a domain structure, exactly the domains we have now. So we don't have a one account. We create a different multiple accounts for the domain. And for every domain, you have a dashboard. So let's say engineering manager, like a leader for this domain, is responsible for all the dashboard and make sure that this 20 service is always up and running. So it's more about accountability and ownership, which we try to put. Also with the tooling, like as I mentioned, with proper dashboards. And this was really helpful for them to really see what's going on and to fix it. Yeah. Come on.
Can you tell a bit about your churn of the talent through this journey? Anything you can share.
Yeah, no, sure. it was a difference. So we have a lot of churn in infrastructure rather than product engineering, because we also have some people who are cloud agnostic, right? So because you have Plus server and everything running, I believe near about 30% we lose people. We of course exchange or get some new ones there, but it was a lot. Also the knowledge gaps in the infrastructure, because it was set up since 10 years with the same mindset, and it was always hard to, you can train them, but sometimes it doesn't work, right? So near about 30% people decided to leave over the time, over this whole journey. Yeah.
So the question from the cost perspective you already mentioned is that, for example, the data egress in your hybrid system was something that you weren't expecting. Was there another particular thing that was more more expensive than you would have expected? As someone who's recently actually looked at these costs, because I feel like the vast majority of people, cloud just runs and then someone pays the bill, right? So like a service or two or three that you could make, like, I was actually surprised how much more expensive this was than on-prem.
It's always you estimate something with your best knowledge, but the estimation looks different, right? So especially the people, they don't have experience to how the new environment will be there with our systems, what we have, right? What we see, especially the database, right? So even though you have this old prem, they come up with a free database, like, I don't know, like some terabytes, but our database is huge. So it has to spin up the whole storage and the networking. So I think that these are the 50% cost comes from having old system with the new system and the networking between them, the traffic and the storage. So I think that these are the two costs which was not accounted for so much, but over the time, when you get the bill in a month, then you see, okay, what's going on? And also we switched to enterprise support on AWS because we see that the business support is there, but we need more enterprise support. So that's also, of course, doesn't come free. So all these small components will add up to the cost.
There was no particular sort of managed service in AWS that you completely blacklisted.
No. I think so. We use all the native stuff, what we have, and this is also our new strategy to put everything to AWS. We are also putting our SAP into the cloud. So that's managed cost-wise properly in the one dimension. And also we try to use more like a marketplace, AWS, for observability tools and all that stuff. Yeah. So I think so this storage and networking was surprising, I want to tell.
Maybe you can jump in a bit. I'm going to speak later about cloud costs, so exactly that topic. I think the biggest problem with all the cloud migrations, the cloud journey, is that you have this ridiculously complicated calculators you can use, but still not everything is reflected in there. So it's more or less the ballpark figure you're getting, and then you're in the cloud, and then in hindsight, you need to analyze where are the costs coming from, and you can do a lot to optimize and to reduce the cost. And if you're not looking at it, that's definitely going to burn your wallet. I think the biggest standard metric I've heard and seen from multiple cloud providers is that traffic cost on average is 15 to 20% of your total bill. That's standard. And when you're coming from on-premise, the traffic costs are in a very different magnitude, and you're pay per call, per API request, for example, on some services. And before, when you hosted yourself, you didn't pay per API request, so you didn't optimize. So this whole topic, what you talked about, this migration from legacy system to cloud native system, if you drag that along for a very long time, you didn't optimize your system for cheaper cloud costs. And this is when all these cases, also what you see, where companies move back into on-premise because cloud was too expensive, because they didn't optimize for the cloud. They didn't have auto scaling, for example, on the workload when they needed it and so on. So there's a lot of
especially the small components. When you see the AWS bill in a month, it's like 25 components, and you say, okay, what's this about? FS6, like different ones. And I think so what Jan will also present at later about the optimization parameters. But yeah, for us also it was exactly like this. The traffic, especially the internal traffic between the old and new infrastructure, was a major blocker.
Maybe starting as a disclaimer, I work for a European cloud provider called Panos. So I was going to ask about you, did you had any thoughts about hybrid or multi-cloud strategy? how difficult as a fintech provider was it to put your data into US? Essentially, you're in European based company.
Yeah. I don't think so. We go to multi-cloud, right? I mean, we did already one big cloud journey, and now I think so. The more important is to focus on the product feature and to span the horizon from the feature perspective. So that was not into the consideration. Of course, we check Google Cloud and all that stuff. The one advantage what we have, because we are part of Nexi is the biggest payment provider in whole Europe, and we got a discount from them, enterprise support from AWS. So that's why there's no means to go to a different cloud because you're getting some cheaper price. This was one thing. What was your second question? I forgot.
As a European company.
Okay, yeah, that's the. We're BaFin regulated, so of course that's the first thing they will see. Yeah, but of course AWS was super good actually to provide all the documentation. I mean, it's running in Frankfurt still, right? So you can't go away from US companies, especially when you talk Atlassian, different components what you use. But BaFin was fine with this, that it's running in German data center. It's fine. But you're right, but it really depends on the company. So I was working in ING Bank before, where we moved to Azure. And of course, BaFin was not so happy. Then Microsoft and ING has a partnership that they can go to their data center in Germany if there's something happen. So I think it's really how you negotiate with the regulations. It can work out. And I see that many companies use all of the cloud, like all the Google Cloud, actually, people use it. So it really depends how you negotiate that.
One more question about the commitment of the company more in the direction of the business side, right? So we already discussed that obviously cost is something they will care about and sort of a slowdown in future development as well. But how do you manage around the expectations of the business and commercial people, what all of this is for, right? I guess in the beginning you'll say we will further enable customer value and stuff like that, but how do you track that on the way, and how do you ensure that when you're sort of done or the journey is progressing, you can tell the commercial guys, look, this is actually good for you?
Yeah. That's always interesting, right? To tell business to give some money for something which doesn't have a direct impact to the merchant. It was a heavy discussion for sure, right? So the commitment what we have from the company that we won't block features, of course it will be reduced. So it's not like 0 or 100, so we'll still do it. It's more also from the KPIs, right? So we see on the future, especially incidents, right? So when we have Plus Server, there was no disaster recovery. There was one time when Plus Server was down. So this is the KPIs which we use, that with AWS or with a cloud solution, you have always uptime because you of course have different regions there and all that. And the problem, or it also goes into the good direction because they don't want to have incident, then they have to explain to the customer. So especially commercial teams. No, it was a gradual changes also in the project plan, because first we thought, okay, let's use maybe 70 or 80% capacity and be done in 6 months. Doesn't fly with business because right now you see the market priorities keep on changing. So we try to make sure that we can still accommodate some things on the roadmap and make it happen somehow. Yeah, because there's no point to go back. We already shut down. So the only point is to finish this cloud journey. And that's also come with shutting down Plus Server because you don't have any other option available. Yeah. But it's a continuous discussion or the communication. And I think this, what you mentioned is also very important to communicate. We do in all hands, for example, in the whole company, because many people don't understand cloud journey. They say, what you're doing here, like moving to the cloud, what it will bring. So we also try to do a lot of communication and also enjoy the moments when we do the milestones. It's also important to take the company with it, right? To also explain the gist of it.
Time for one more question, if there's any. Otherwise, thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.